Okay, so it is right at 8:30 Pacific, 11:30 Eastern, so we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you for joining me today for our AgSafe monthly webinar. Today we're going to talk about the top 5 MSPA violations. Um, So I will be your speaker. My name is Natalie Gupton, and I am the Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for AgSafe. So I am located all the way in Louisville, Kentucky, but of course our headquarters is in Modesto, California. Um, we do these webinars on a monthly basis, same time, second Tuesday of each month. So check us out online at agsafe.org for the upcoming topics, and follow us on social media at AgSafe Online. We like to promote upcoming trainings, upcoming webinars, and any up-to-date information that we find necessary that you may find important. So a great place to find that information is our social media pages. Next, I'll give you just a moment to review our disclaimer, and then we will jump into today's content. Okay, so today's objectives, we only have a short time together, 30 minutes. So we're going to try to touch on a few things, so you walk away with some information on MSPA. So first, we're going to talk about what is MSPA, the alphabet soup of laws and regulations in the agriculture industry. Next, we're going to talk about who is subject to MSPA. Then we're going to jump into the purpose of today's webinar, the top citations by the U.S. Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division, and then some tips for correction. So what can you do to prevent these violations? MSPA. So what am I talking about when I'm referring to MSPA? So MSPA stands for the Migrant and Seasonal Agriculture Worker Protection Act. And so MSPA protects migrant and seasonal agriculture workers by establishing employment standards related to wages, housing, transportation, disclosures, and record keeping. So that's a little bit of a snapshot into those top violations of this uh, regulation or this law. So, and as well as MSPA also requires farm labor contractors to register with the U.S. Department of Labor. So who exactly is subject to the Migrant and Seasonal Agriculture Worker Protection Act? So there are 4 groups or entities that must comply with this law. So there's the farm labor contractors, but in addition to farm labor contractors, farm labor contractor employees, so those individuals that are doing farm labor contractor activities under a licensed FLC who's deemed as an employee must also comply with those standards that are laid out in MSPA. Additionally, agriculture employers, so this is anyone that owns or operates a farm or ranch, but also a packing shed or nursery or the like. So this is growers, shippers, and packers. So if you're not a farm labor contractor and you are a grower, you fall into the this category. So if you're a farmer and utilizing migrant and seasonal workers, you're in this category. Next, there's agricultural associations. So this is a nonprofit or cooperative association of growers or ranchers who are utilizing migrant and seasonal workers. And additionally, those that are providing housing to these type of workers, all of which are subject to the Migrant and Seasonal Agriculture Worker Protection Act. And because you guys are a captive audience, I want to make sure that you are aware of some updated changes that the Department of Labor has made to the Farm Labor Contractor License. So this is an example of what this license or card or certificate, whatever you want to call it, looks like. So this is what it looks like prior to March 29th of this year. If you are renewing after March 29th of this year, you will have this bottom version of what you're seeing on the screen. Now, your previous version is valid until it reaches its expiration date, but know that you're going to be seeing two different licenses out there for a little while there's an overlap. But eventually they'll be moving to this newer version that you're seeing on the bottom of the screen. Now, this is the Farm Labor Contractor license. The blue card is the Farm Labor Contractor Employee license. Again, same concept, before and after 3/29 of 2021. Again, both of which are valid at this current time, but once the previous version expires, you'll need to have this bottom version. And then on the slide, of course, you will get a copy of the slide, so you'll have access to the links that are provided, but you'll get more information there on that link about these changes. Okay, next, jumping into those common or top violations. So I just got this from our friends over at the Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division early last week. So hot off the presses, so to speak. So the number one violation that Wage and Hour Division is seeing is the failure to provide wage statements to workers. So under MSPA, you are responsible for, paying. Clearly, you want to pay your workers their wages when they are due, but you must have that wage statement provided to them, and it must include itemized information for each pay period, including any amounts deducted and the reasons for the deduction. And it needs to be a written statement every pay period. So if you pay twice a month, they get 2 wage statements a month. If you pay on a weekly basis, every week they have to have a wage statement accompanying that paycheck. So what needs to be on this wage statement? There are 8 items on the screen that you need to have on your wage statement. Name, permanent address, and social security number of that worker. Basis on which wages are paid. Number of piecework units earned if you are paying them on a piece rate basis. Of course, if you're not, then that's not necessary. But the basis of which wages are earned. So if they're on an hourly basis, then you need to identify the rate in which they are being paid and that they're on the hourly basis. The number of hours worked, the total pay period earnings, So that's the gross amount. So that's before any taxes or any deductions are taken out. For example, if you're wonderful and provide some health insurance, then that could be an option of what something could be deducted from that individual's paycheck. And number 6, specific sums withheld and the purpose of each sum withheld. So example, the taxes, the insurance, anything else that you may, that is deemed legal to deduct from that wage statement. Additionally, the net pay. So gross is the total amount minus any deductions equals the net pay. So what is that individual actually taking home? That needs to be on that wage statement. And then finally, you need to have, you as the employer's information, your name, address, and your employer identification number. That comes from the IRS. So this is an example of what a wage statement could look like. So the wage and hour division is great and provides lots of templates for you. We highly suggest using these so that you are not missing anything that they require of you under MSPA. However, it is an optional form. So if you're using a payroll entity or professional service, provide this to them, let them know I need all this information available on my wage statements for my employees. Again, the link there at the bottom in the blue, that you can check that out after the webinar and get more information or the copy of that template. Next, number 2, failure to disclose working conditions to workers. This is a big one. Often, if you're a farm labor contractor and you're recruiting, soliciting, or hiring, you are not, some folks are not providing disclosures to those employees during that recruitment. Or you're verbally saying one thing, but when they show up to work, they're hearing something else. And so that's when issues arise, discrepancies start. So this is very important that you provide disclosures to your employees. These disclosures work as a contract. And again, Wage and Hour has an awesome template. Highly suggest that you use it. And this works as a contract, so to speak. So when you provide that to your employee, then it's essentially set in stone unless there's some type of amendment going on and agreements are made. But you have to provide it to your employee. You cannot just post it. You cannot just talk about it. They have to have a physical copy of their working conditions. So on this disclosure, you're talking about the type of work that's being performed, the wages that are expected to be paid, the period of employment. So you're going to employ this person, for example, March through September of 2021. You need to have that disclosed to that employee in writing. You also need to talk about whether the state, whether you are providing workers' compensation insurance and employment insurance. It's important that you also provide this in multiple languages. So if you are recruiting Spanish-speaking individuals, you cannot just give this to them in English. You want to make sure that they understand it and can read it. So providing that in the language that they use is important. Next, failure to post the MSPA poster at worksite. This one's easy. This one's so easy, and there's no reason that you should not be able to be in compliance with this one. All you have to do is go online and print it out and put it at the work site. If you're working in multiple locations, have several copies in your work truck, and just have it available. Depending on what state you're in, you may have a variety of postings that you're required to have available. And so just stick that with the rest of them. So this is important that you have. Again, this is available online with the rest of the templates. I provided the links here. It's available in multiple languages. You can see Spanish, Haitian Creole, Vietnamese, Hmong. Um, so with the English translation, so you know exactly what you're posting if you're only an English speaker. Again, go online, print it out, have multiple copies, and post it at the work site where you have migrant and seasonal workers working for you. Okay, number 4, failure to make and keep employer records. So this essentially goes back to your payroll records. You have to keep a copy of these items for yourself for at least 3 years. So each farm labor contractor, agriculture employer, and agriculture association that employs migrant or seasonal agriculture workers must make and keep the following records for each worker. This list should be familiar to you as it's the same information that you need to provide on your worker's wage statement. The name, permanent address, and social security number of your employee, basis on which wages are paid, number of piecework units earned, if that's how you choose to pay your people, number of hours worked, total pay period earnings, specific sums withheld, and the purpose of each, and the net pay. So again, either if you're a farm labor contractor, you're an ag employer, or an ag association, you must keep all of these payroll records for a period of 3 years. When a farm labor contractor employs a migrant or seasonal agriculture worker for an agriculture employer, agriculture association, or other farm labor contractor, the employer must also provide these payroll records for each employee. And the person receiving these records must maintain them for a period of 3 years. So very important. And the issues that they're seeing is that either A, you're not keeping a record at all, or you're not maintaining those records for at least 3 years. So very important that you have these for each employee that you have working for you over a period of 3 years. Next, number 5, failure to ensure housing, safety, and health. So each person or organization which owns or controls a facility or real property used for housing, migrant or seasonal workers must comply with federal and state safety and health standards. A written statement of the terms and conditions of occupancy must be posted at the housing site where it can be seen or given to the workers. So again, there's a couple of things that go into the housing aspect and taking into consideration with these violations. So failure to ensure housing safety and health. This is a big one. Folks are providing housing for these individuals, but they're not meeting safety standards. And you could be in a situation, and I know it can put employer or a farmer in a rough place, that you provide this wonderful housing to these individuals, and they may or may not take great care of it. And when you happen to be inspected, would be a point later in the season after your employees had lived in the housing for a while, and it may not be in the shape that you first provided it to those individuals. You, as the owner of that housing, are responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of that home or the housing facility. And that also includes making sure the people that are living there are doing their best to keep it clean and in the right condition as well. So that is a little tough, but having terms and conditions laid out in the beginning and upfront with these individuals is important, and having rules and code of conduct and those things are important. That is not required by law. However, the terms and conditions help kind of lay the groundwork for you to be able to establish these with your employees. And with that, you're setting the standard and expectations with those individuals from the very beginning, and will also help you be in compliance and keep your housing facility in the condition it is expected to be. So this form is a little bit harder to see on the screen. So zooming in just a little bit, of course, again, you don't necessarily have to use this particular form. However, it is a great template for you to start and know what information you need to provide to these individuals. So here on item number 4, conditions of occupancy. So laying this out for the inhabitants, you have who may live in the housing facility, charges made for housing. So, if you have domestic workers, then you do have the ability to charge for the use of the housing. So if you do so, you've got to lay this out in the terms and conditions, as well as those disclosures at the beginning. So laying that out and having this on this form. You talk about the meals provided. So if you're providing food for the individuals, you lay that out here on this form, or the form that you are using to provide to your workers. Charges for utilities. If there are any other charges that are deemed legal that you need to outline here, and then other conditions of occupancy. So whatever rules or conditions that you find necessary, you can have that laid out here on this form as well. Again, laying this out, you have to have the terms and conditions, but going the extra step as is important to protect yourself and your property is to also have housing rules as well as a code of conduct, and setting those expectations from the very beginning. You could appoint someone in the crew as in charge of the housing. You designate a day and time each week that cleaning and inspection of the house is going to take place. Anything that you can do to assist yourself in having a safe and healthy housing facility for your workers is prudent on your behalf. Next, housing OSHA housing standards. So this is an example of some of the things that you need to be in compliance with to meet this standard under MSPA. So this is just 2 points that I pulled from the actual OSHA housing standards. So for example, one is each room used for sleeping purposes shall contain at least 50 square feet of floor space for each occupant. At least a 7-foot ceiling shall be provided. Additionally, beds, cots, or bunks and suitable storage facilities such as wall lockers for clothing and personal articles shall be provided in every room used for sleeping purposes. Such beds or similar facilities shall be spaced not closer than 36 inches both laterally and end to end, and shall be elevated at least 12 inches from the floor. And so on and so forth. I'm not going to read the entire thing to you, but you can see there are very specific standards in which OSHA requires of a housing facility that you're providing under MSPA. Again, this link, encourage you to check it out to get all these specifics. They can be a little cumbersome, but going into providing a housing facility with your eyes wide open and aware of these requirements are important. So talking about these common violations, what are the repercussions? So potentially a violation of the act or any regulation under the act. So this is in specific reference to MSPA. You can result in a fine of $2,579. So for example, $2,500, it is a lot of money, but not so bad if you think, oh, well, oops, I made a mistake, whatever. That's per violation. So if you think about if you have 500 employees and you fail to provide 500 wage statements, that could be $1,289,500. So those can add up depending on what type of violation you're talking about. So that's just a quick example of how these violations can add up. Okay, so we have a question. It says, does the terms and conditions form need to be commodity, season, and county specific? For example, a form for cauliflower and another one for broccoli and in 2 different counties. So Virginia, this is me speaking off the top of my head. I think it depends on the type of work that they are doing. So if they're doing similar types of jobs per commodity, you do not necessarily have to have different forms for that work. If the work is different, you may just need to outline that specifically on the form or the disclosures that you're providing, but you don't necessarily have to have another form for each commodity or season. Does that make sense? If you lay it out, if you just have a Word doc and you type this thing out for them and provide it to them, you don't necessarily have to have it a form for each job, so to speak. Oh, and one thing that I want to go back to with the disclosures that I failed to mention is that you want those individuals to acknowledge that they received a copy. So if you're going through the entire process of having the form or having a paper written disclosures available to your employees or those that are you're recruiting, you want to have a documentation saying that they received it. Now, this is not required under MSPA. However, it is going the extra step, and we highly recommend it to protect yourself. That it can be just a statement that says, yes, I received my disclosures from farm labor contractor, Mr. Joe. And those individuals can sign their name and acknowledge that they received it. Having that signature and acknowledgement that they received it, again, is just an extra step and protection for you as the employer. Because you get in a couple of years down the road, an issue arises and they said, I never received it. And you're like, I provided a copy. I don't understand why you saying he never received it. Just having that extra protection and having that signature is a great recommendation for you. So finally, again, I will provide a PDF copy of the slides so you have access to these links. But again, some great resources online from the U.S. Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division and the MSPA webpage. Tons of links, tons of templates and resources to utilize. There's a fact sheet that kind of lays out and gives a great summary of MSPA. And then again, those housing terms and conditions, that template is provided there. All right, so with that, we have come to the end of our time together. I will hang online for just a little bit longer to ensure I answer any questions that you guys may have. Again, you can use that question and answer feature in Zoom or the chat box, and I will be happy to address those for you. But again, appreciate you taking time to join me today and learn a little bit more about the Migrant Seasonal Worker Protection Act and those common violations that the Wage and Hour Division are seeing. So again, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful and safe day. And if anybody has any questions, just type those in the chat box.